Ladies and gentlemen, Ted Carr.
Tip number one when it comes to life: your weaknesses don't matter. Don't focus on what you're weak at. And if you suck at something, don't worry about it. Delegate it. Get someone else to do it. If you suck at math, use a calculator or pay a mathematician. If you suck at drawing, pay an artist. If you suck at cleaning your house, pay a cleaning lady. If you suck at looking after your kids, pay a babysitter. Like, focus on your strengths, guys. Life is too...
Who could this possibly be useful information for, Ted? Only people who are born rich, on permanent vacation, and have absolutely zero ambition in life. I assume that's people like you, Ted.
Too short, and there are way too many people who are really good at what you suck at, who would love to do what you suck at. So you might as well get them to do a really, really good job at it while you go do a really, really good job at what you're really great at. I don't believe in focusing on your weaknesses and making them greater. I just believe on doing what you're already good at and just focusing on those. Focus on those, focus on those, focus on those. Focus on your strengths. You don't know what your strengths are.
Ted Carr's entire web presence, so far as I can see, is an elaborate justification for the fact that he has wasted his own life potential. He seems to be a man with zero ambition, zero interest in the outside world, zero human curiosity, zero capacity for self-improvement, zero mental focus, zero ability to speak in paragraphs or even form sentences, although he fancies himself a writer and claims that he spends several hours a day writing. I shudder to think if the quality of his writing is as bad as his ability to speak the English language. I searched high and low on the internet for anything like a professional resume, a CV for this guy. The only thing I could find is his own brief account of his decision to drop out of university at age 19 and how this is the best decision he ever made for his life. And then this philosophy. What he's advocating is not even having any ambition, is not even having the courage to try and to fail. Drop out now. Don't try hard and fail later. Don't have any ambition to accomplish anything in the world. And all of this is pinned against the wall. It hangs on the rusty fucking nail of the justification that what you really ought to do with your life is be happy. What you really ought to be concerned with is just your own joy, your own enjoyment of life. And I disagree with that so fundamentally. You know, I didn't know, at the start of making this video, I didn't really know what direction I was going to take with this. I did not think I would feel so shocked, so horrified by the philosophy of Ted Carr. For me, to simplify slightly, I've got to tell you, morality is ambition. That's a catchphrase, that's a slogan, that's a simplification. But what do I mean? Morality without ambition would not be morality. Okay? If I didn't have the ambition to actually improve the situation in Cambodia, I wouldn't have ever made the effort, the long hours of incredibly hard work to study the Cambodian language. Very hard work, utterly thankless work, work that had no positive outcome, etc., etc., right? Is there a sense in which you can just sit in a library in Canada and study the Cambodian language or Cambodian history, Cambodian politics, and be a moral person? I don't know, maybe. I would tell you, for me, morality without ambition is not morality, okay? And a life without ambition ultimately is a life with no morals, because a life without ambition is going to be either a life of self-indulgence, or if you're trapped in poverty, it's going to just be a struggle to survive, which it is for plenty of people. It's not for Ted Carr. And I don't hate Ted Carr for being born rich. I have to assume from the limited information he's provided me about his life that Ted Carr is born rich and he is spending money that somebody else earned. That's fine. You know who you have that in common with? Ted Carr, Bruce Wayne. You know what the difference is between you and Bruce Wayne? Ambition. So many videos, so many, that justify your decision to not get an education, to not have a career, to not have any ambition to make the world a better place. None. You know, the one I just watched from you is titled Understanding Your Life Purpose in 60 Seconds. Great title. Unfortunately, the video is 4 minutes and 33 seconds long. The first 2 minutes of that video were the longest 2 minutes of my life, Ted. I mean, you know, Ted Carr's manifesto for the unexamined life of short-term pleasures and self-indulgence. Look, and Ted, you know what? It is partly that to me he looks like an old man. I thought he was 40, just based on appearance. I thought Ted Carr was 40. But you know what also, Ted? The philosophy you're spouting is such an old man's philosophy. It's the kind of garbage I heard from men in Thailand who, unlike myself and other men who were just waiting to die. Men who had no ambition to make a positive difference in the world. And you know, it is sad. It's sad that in Western culture, ambition is so much linked to just earning money. My ambitions had nothing to do with earning money during that time of my life. But I mean, when I lived in Thailand, when I lived in Cambodia, I had to say to people again and again, look, because other people would invite me to go do things that I consider a waste of time, things for just for enjoyment, for the indulgence of the moment. I have to say, look, I'm sorry, I'm not on vacation. You know, maybe you are, or maybe this is how you live your life as an expat. But, you know, I'm out here, I have real goals. There are things I'm trying to accomplish. Study of the language, study the history, what I was trying to do in terms of humanitarian work. And a lot of those things are failures. You know, but I mean, Ted Carr's message is just live your life for your own self-indulgence, for your own enjoyment. Don't even try, don't even fail. You know, I would feel very hesitant to recommend anyone have ambition, go out and fail. There's a lot of suffering involved. There's a lot of misery. You know, if you have those ambitions, if you want to make the world a better place, and you know, you try so hard and one venture after another fails, I think the kind of sorrow that comes from that is much, much worse than the sorrow that comes from a failed business venture when something's just about money. If it's not just about money, I think it's pretty straightforward psychologically and emotionally. Say, well, I tried to start that pizza restaurant. It didn't work out. It turns out the market for vegan pizza is only a few thousand people. Whatever, you know. You fill out your tax forms and you move on. And for me, there are all kinds of little small ambitions I had within the big ambitions where the fact that I couldn't carry them out, you know, haunts me. There was one woman I knew in Laos, obviously an elderly woman from the story I'm about to tell. She directly witnessed, you know, atrocities of war, horrible things beyond comprehension. She had a story that'll stay with me forever. She had a bunch of stories. But I mean, this woman had to run away from her home as a child during what's called the American War over there. She actually had to escape from Laos up into the mountains that are on the border between Laos and Vietnam. The only education she got at that age was literally in a cave, you know, a chalkboard in a cave. And, you know, she got to see some bizarre and amazing things. But, you know, including airplanes and helicopters shooting people to death in that war. And I do mean shooting, not bombing, by the way, people to death. And, you know, talking to her, she knew me for about 2 years before she opened up and told me that stuff. You know, she knew me for like 2 years and she told me this stuff. And at that time, I was working really hard to learn the Lao language. And I said to her, look, I'm going away now to do humanitarian work in the field. I was doing a job. That's the only job I've had, which is humanitarian in that strictest sense. It was a job that included sacks of rice being handed to starving people. So humanitarian work in a narrow sense. A lot of other work I did was humanitarian in a broader, more abstract sense. I said, look, I'm going to the field to do this humanitarian work. When I come back, I'm going to understand the Lao language even better. I'm going to be way better in my ability to use this language. And what I really want to do is record your story, write it down, and publish it as a short book. You know, just interview you about what happened during this time in your life so that people know this history and they know it from that human perspective. Okay? Now, I never got to do that because when I was out doing that humanitarian work, members of the government threatened to kill me, kicked me out of the country. It's a story I've told part of on this channel. I didn't tell the part that comes after the death threats. But, you know, my humanitarian work ended with a bang. Ended with me being exiled with nothing but my backpack and my bicycle and having to find a whole new life. And the years of hard work I put into the Lao language now suddenly seemed like they were for nothing because I was told I could never go back into the country. That if I went back in the country, my life would be in danger. You know, that I could be killed or what have you. If you've just spent 2.5 years studying the Lao language and Lao history and Lao politics, you've got a body of knowledge that's useful absolutely nowhere aside from Laos. So if the government of Laos has kicked you out and said you can't come back, all your humanitarian aspirations are at an end, and so on. But every minute I spent during those years was animated by ambition, and not ambition to make money, and not, ambition of some kind. And I believe me, I'm extremely self-critical. I think many of my ambitions were stupid and jejune and led to my own self-destruction. They were bad for me, and now that I have a daughter, I didn't back then, I was single, in a very real sense, they're bad for my family, they're bad for my economic situation. I was not born rich. I do not have the luxury of just pursuing that kind of thing and then saying, oh well, and moving on to the next venture. Really disastrous for me in terms of my financial situation and the kind of jobs I had to take after that. Unlike other people in the museum industry, unlike other people in the charity industry, for me this was not a hobby. This was my only income, and I desperately needed the income I got doing that kind of humanitarian work. And one of those jobs paid me like US $300 per month. These are truly humanitarian wages. So if you're born rich, you can do that, and the payment is symbolic. If you're not born rich and you actually need to live on that, it's a whole different game. But look, there's a kind of morality even to what I was doing during the long hours I spent in archives with books studying history and languages. But the morality doesn't come from the act itself. Sitting at that desk and studying so seriously, so ferociously, there's a sense in which it's no different from sitting in the same library and wasting time playing video games at your computer, or kind of dragging your ass and doing the bare minimum to research an assignment for university for a course that doesn't interest you. There's a sense in which what you do in the library is no different. The difference comes from the ambition. The ambition to make a difference. The ambition to change the world in some way. And I gotta tell you, I guess that's the sense in which I find Ted Carr's philosophy so disturbing. In some ways more disturbing than Durian Rider. I really have to tell you. I guess I find it so disturbing because even though I keep saying, like, my expectations are low of my fellow vegans, yes, when I look at my fellow vegans, I expect them to have that ambition to change the world in terms of ecology, in terms of animal rights. It's deeply disturbing to me to see veganism tied to what I used to call the permanent vacation lifestyle, permanent vacation philosophy. And in this case, I feel like I even need a new term for it. A life totally defined in terms of self-indulgence. Morality is ambition. That's a catchphrase, that's a slogan, that's a simplification. But what do I mean? Morality without ambition would not be morality.